Hello everybody, and welcome to Students for Political Engagement. So today we have an interview with Tom Muench, who is the incumbent Ward 2 councillor running for re-election. So good evening and welcome.
Hey, good day. Good to see you.
So to start us off, would you like to give a short introduction of yourself and some things you think are your greatest accomplishments on City Council so far?
So I'd say I've been in government. My name's Tom Muench. I'm the Ward 2 councillor, resident of Richmond Hill in Ward 2, and have been since 1995. I am really proud to try to adjust the culture and the commitment to serve people and to react and respond to the needs of our community. And I'd say my accomplishments this and last term have been to increase services, to make sure we have a government that's accountable, and to make sure that I'm responsive and transparent and accountable always to the people in my community and Ontario and Canada first.
All right, thank you. So our first question about your policy, I guess, is about transportation. Now, of course, an important part of a city is efficient transportation. So what would you, and what have you been doing as councillor to develop and improve Richmond Hill's current transportation system?
So transportation is a multi-government responsibility and engagement. And you're going to hear this fairly often. I believe in being collaborative and working with the plans of others as opposed to fighting and offsetting some of those plans. So I applaud our Premier, who is Dalton McGuinty, and Kathleen Wynne, and now Doug Ford, when they have made Richmond Hill and our community throughout Yonge Street a transit corridor. And as a responsibility of a transit corridor and getting the billions and billions of dollars of both infrastructure and investment from Doug Ford and the residents of Richmond Hill and others, because when Ontario supports their transit system, people in Kingston and London and Barrie, for example, help subsidize our community. So what have I done to support the investments of the province and York region as a whole onto our transit system? I've embraced their policies and enhanced them and worked within a Richmond Hill confine. I'm committed to a transit-oriented community. I've moved motions repeatedly to be committed to a decreasing traffic and a more pedestrian-friendly, walkable community by reducing parking standards on high-rise, for example, on Yonge Street, that is mandated by the province and committed to by this city of Richmond Hill, both before it was election in 2010 and the key development areas and the official plans, and today. So I love walkable, livable areas. I love moving walkable trails, having suburban outside of those urban centers. And Yonge Street is going to be a transit corridor. And I believe in intensification and a walkable, livable area. So that's what I'm doing.
Yes, thank you for that answer. And I think moving into a bit more detail on a walkable community, I know as a passion of yours, you enjoy the electric scooter. Yes. So on like in Richmond Hill, sidewalks are not always compatible with things like electric scootering and cycling. So do you have any ideas on how those can be improved and developed?
So, the truth is, initially, when I first got elected in 2014, I was a little bit less excited about alternative methods of transportation. They call it here TDM, or transportation demand measures. So I love the entire gambit now. I'm going to say to you that if we're going to have a population growing, and we have had a population declining recently here, but if we have a population that's growing, we're going to have a place where we can live in harmony. And it comes down to my earlier discussion about transportation. So I like Uber. I like when we, they have the alternative methods of walking, of using scooters, of working the people who are having both essential services like wheelchairs, and to have people be able to walk along that. So I believe we have to have a corridor of embracement. And I think you have to have an area, not necessarily like Yonge Street where it's gated or structured, but we have to have a mechanism. And York region, again, has done a really good job on Yonge Street and on Leslie Avenue. Bayview, not so much, because the landscape in our downtown Yonge Street needs a lot more to be done. And that's the city of Richmond Hill's responsibility. So I'm a big fan of having transportation walkable livable areas for scooters, for wheelchairs, for people who are on canes or need some assistance, who have, walking mobility issues, and for people walking their dogs, and cars and transit that work collaboratively, so we can have a real cool way of going about it. And that's always a challenge, but we have to be committed to doing all the above. And I think it's the way of the future. So let's get on board and let's get on with it. Let's not try to restrict it and do bad development today that doesn't embrace where we're going. The fact is, it's coming. Driverless cars are coming. So let's get on it. And I don't think we're anywhere near where we should be, especially as a green municipality.
All right, thank you for that answer. And our next question has to do with public parks and green spaces. So public parks and green spaces are an important part of Richmond Hill. How would you work to protect and improve the environment of our city?
So I have moved, and it's in my platform, I'm number 3 of increase walkable trails. So the Jefferson Forest Trail and others working alongside. It was challenging for me amongst our last council meetings, the last 2, when we heard that we don't work collaboratively with green bodies like Toronto Regional Conservation Authority. We don't work with Metrolinx alongside, but we work on our own little concept plan of how we do parks. So I think in order to have an integrated park and trail network, which is where I think we should be going, as opposed to destination parks of Richmond Green only, or of a parkette, for example, I think we can have it all. I think we could have destination parks, but we can also have local parks, but more importantly, integrated trails, working with the province, working with Toronto Regional Conservation Authority, also known as TRCA, working alongside Metrolinx. And I have moved motions in council, sometimes passed, sometimes some of my colleagues chose not to do it or delay it. I don't think we should be delaying. As we grow and as we use land, we lose opportunities to have integration. And I think we need a lot more leadership on that area. And I have, again, moved more trails and motions than all of my colleagues. So that says a lot about my commitment of walkable green space. And given that we have the Oak Ridge Moraine and the Greenbelt in our community with some beautiful, beautiful landscapes, we have a fantastic opportunity to get it right. If I may, I'll go further. Along the Highway 7 corridor, for example, that whole is a great opportunity that's just missed right now. We're not even engaging to try to find that as a green, walkable, livable area. Hasn't even been contemplated by most of our staff or members of council, which saddens me.
All right, thank you. And moving on to our next question, which is about community safety, which is, of course, an important part of a livable community. So how will you as a councillor maintain and improve community safety in Richmond Hill?
So safety and policing also have to do in line. Generally speaking, I think a lot of people will agree with this. Certainly our policing and our social people believe this in the province and federally, that as we have declining incomes, we start losing a socioeconomic and a sense of community. It's really disappointing. I use that term a lot when I hear that a study was done by the province in 2019, whereby Yonge Street, Bayview, Major Mackenzie, Elgin Mills, which is my ward, is the worst socioeconomic area in the province. And as a result, but as a reality check, we have got the #1 policed location in terms of calls in that area. We've had robberies and shootings there in recent weeks. It's been an ongoing problem. And I have always wanted to upgrade that area and still work with all the people in that area, including the local business improvement area, or the BIA, which I'm on the board. And I am an absolute advocate for, again, widening those sidewalks, making sure it's walkable, raising the income level and the walkability of that area, which will help in term the crime. Outside of the Yonge Street corridor, we really do need to make sure that we have an area that we provide enough housing and the right type of housing, the right types of income. So we need better income or increased income, and we need to work collaboratively to try and make all of that happen. We, again, as a municipality, have done a little bit of hodgepodge, but really haven't made a commitment to raise the level of affordability and livability. And when we see the other way, when the 2016 census says that $88,353 is the median household income of Richmond Hill residents, yet today the cost of housing is over 200,000, we should be going the other way. We should be having higher income and lowering cost, not lower income and higher costs. And what that will do is that'll improve the socioeconomic of the area, and I believe will reduce the crime, certainly the active crime that we see today.
All right, thank you for that answer. And I think another aspect of community safety is the safety of our roads. And I think you touched upon this a bit when you talked about like sidewalks and making them wider for safety. And I think another aspect of this is traffic bylaws that the city, creates and enforces to govern traffic in Richmond Hill. So do you have any ideas on those and how those might be developed?
Along the same lines, a little bit, but taking it to another level. So creating sprawl or encouraging sprawl and creating jobs elsewhere, all that does is create traffic and to add roads into neighborhoods, or adding roads and then bringing those roads into neighborhoods, increasing traffic, I believe is the entire wrong-headed approach. It's bad for the environment, it's bad for the community, creates safety issues, adds cost to our roads from people moving from one municipality to another. I would much prefer to have work again with other levels of government along their plans, working collaborative with them to making sure that we have a walkable, livable area that is less car dependent, because when people have to drive long distances, it just adds. We have over $16 billion of productivity loss. That's real income loss to families and people every year in Ontario, because we have this approach of let's drive for an hour or 2 hours to our work. And it just doesn't work. It doesn't work in the summertime. It doesn't work on Friday afternoons. And people are getting frustrated, creating road rage, and just the wrong way to go. So we have to create walkable, livable areas, places where that sense of locality, not distance. And we have to have a sense of identity. And all of that's going to be in my ward. Ward 2 is the most exciting because we have such an opportunity up Yonge Street and such a diverse, economically challenging area with investment that just hasn't come because our government has not made it a priority to encourage investment there. In fact, we've discouraged it. And I'm the other way around. And some people are against investment and growth. I'm for investment and growth. So we have better parks, better roads, better families, improved quality of life, and a vibrancy that we can't get. But other people prefer to keep the status quo from the past. And I don't think that's the way to go forwards for this or next generation. I think many people are upset by that.
All right, thank you. That brings us to our next question, which is something you touched on a little bit in your introduction, which is finances and services in Richmond Hill. So as a municipality, the financial health of the city is very important, and it's an important part of its operation. So what have you been doing as councillor, and what will you continue to do to ensure that Richmond Hill is on good financial grounds, while at the same time providing the same or improved services?
So that's a challenge. Responsible government has been my byline, although not in the election, but as I do previously in all my efforts on a daily basis. Responsible government means we're going to be focused on delivering basic services at a value proposition back to the ratepayers. Our government cost is 60% above inflation for the last 15 years. Now, some people can say that's okay because inflation was actually deflation. But there's a generation that's never seen high interest rates. I, unfortunately, am a little bit older and can remember 18 and 20 and 24% interest rates. And if we're at 60% above that in terms of cost for our basic services of providing garbage collection, snowplow, mobile grass cutting, the population will not be able to afford it. And that is a real mistake by government. We should have a place that's more affordable, not less affordable. We shouldn't have people wanting to sell off their assets and move out, but move into our community. So I'm going to say to you, our finances have to do with good, responsible government. They have to do with fiscal prudency and be committed to what we do, but not committed as a priority, our needs versus our wants. And that's really tough. We need political leaders that are going to be committed to having a value proposition, but it's really hard when people are only looking at the short term and they don't look at a long-term lens. So our finances, we are at the mature end of our life cycle in Richmond Hill. And I thank God that we have a province and a provincial leadership for the last 15 years who have been committed to our better Richmond Hill and are committed to York Region, who's invested up front their $3.8 billion in debt, of which Richmond Hill is on the hook as the third largest municipality with and for gross domestic product ever in that sector of York Region. And we have to make sure that we are committed to that growth and opportunity. Otherwise, future generations are going to be burdened with high costs and unsustainability. And with their skilled talents, they'll choose to go elsewhere. And that's not going to help our walkable, livable, job-oriented community. So we need to be fiscally prudent by focusing on our needs. We need to make sure that we're giving value propositions throughout and looking at that bottom line. And we had better be, and I've moved motions on that, of which passed, of which we are at a committed level of performance. And we need to do a lot better, especially now in a high inflationary time when people are struggling.
So what would be an example? Of course, you mentioned things that are wants and maybe not needs. So what would be an example of something that is currently being spent on as a city that you would characterize more as a want rather than a need?
So I'll give you an example. And it's not fun. It's absolutely not fun to govern. It's not fun to manage. It's not fun to say no to people. But I'll give you an example of a potential win. We've got a situation whereby we've got groups who really do great volunteer work. And they go out there and volunteer for their clubs, and they give a lot of volunteer hours. And what we do is we say, well, you know what? We need to have an overseeing of those groups, and we need to charge higher fees. And actually, what happens is it becomes more complicated for them to execute their volunteer and their groups. So we should be investing in those groups, and we should be divesting in oversight at the city with bureaucracy and groups. So for example, I think council should be taking a lot more lead, and certainly the heads of council, if that's where they want to be. They should be in the economic development. They should be selling the city and promoting the city. And we should be putting policies and procedures in place. And we should be working collaboratively to make sure that we get those investments and making sure that it's driven through council, as opposed to waiting for staff reports, as opposed to waiting to see hopefully somebody will come or not come. Because companies like Honda and companies like Plastic Cap and companies like Victaulic aren't going to wait. So we need to make sure, once again, that we do what we do only well, focus on that. Another example is some of our processes, and I hate to say it, like some of our engineering, some of our applications, and the cost of doing business here is very, very cumbersome. Why? Does someone need real 2 or 3 engineering stamps? They're not going to get any more from the second or third. 1 engineering stamp gives that. Why do we have to go through 2 or 3? And that cost is a real cost. It's a cost of time, it's a cost of opportunity, and it's a cost of real money. And that real money costs the ratepayers, and that makes us less productive and less efficient. And it gives us a competitive disadvantage at times. So we need to, again, have value propositions in everything we do and make sure we're competitive with other municipalities throughout North America, because we're not there. And we're doing great, but we could be a lot better.
All right, thank you for that answer. And another part that is important to Richmond Hill is urban development. Right now, the lack of housing is an important problem that is facing Richmond Hill as our population grows. On the other hand, the density of housing and adequate services are also a concern of many residents. What is your philosophy on how the City Council should approach this problem and balance between the two issues?
Great question. Really tough question. I can answer it politically, but I generally don't answer, as we see today, in a political context, even though we're in the middle of an election or near the end of an election. So, as I said earlier, I want to work collaboratively with our other levels of government. When they give us the opportunity to manage, I embrace that. The 2019 development plan that this council approved unanimously, and then after it approved unanimously, didn't go sell it to the public to say, this is our future vision that we're committed to, meant that we were actually saying one thing and doing another and trying to hide that 100% approval. And the reason for that is the legislation changed. And again, our provincial leaders, Kathleen Wynne and Doug Ford, have said, hey guys, go get it done the way you want to get it done within your municipal framework, how you want to see it. And we have not performed. For those of you who don't, this isn't about an opinion. I challenge everybody to Google, what is the population of Richmond Hill in 2017? What is the population of Richmond Hill in 2021? It was a decline. We had a 3% decline in population. When you look at our numbers, of which we forecasted to meet the needs of the future generation for our Richmond Hill, we have only met our unanimously approved performance objectives for growth in terms of building permits 3 times in 16 years. Well, if you go to the private sector and say 13 of 16 years, you're not going to meet your own performance objectives, I don't think a lot of those people are going to be getting bonuses and getting, promotions. Here we are, what we're doing is we're giving people promotions and saying it's okay, and we're promoting mediocrity. And it's a big problem because we just went through a massive growth time with deflation. Never have I seen, nor has anybody else seen, 0.25% interest rates, virtually free money. And we were barely above water. And the affordability has gone to real crisis. Now, we in Richmond Hill don't believe we're in a crisis. This council doesn't believe we're in a crisis because they refuse to talk about it. Yet, if you Google it, you'll see, once again, many municipalities and many people are saying housing affordability and housing is a crisis proportion. So to answer your questions, we got to work with the province. It's really hurtful when we politicize but don't perform. If we want to politicize it and do one thing and say another, fair enough. But the performance of our municipality and of our leaders and our execution at 13 of the last 15 to 16 years have not met our performance targets is hardly saying that we've done a good job. I would say to you, at best, if you get 3 out of 13 or 3 out of 16, I don't think many universities are going to be giving you an A. I certainly don't think they're going to be giving you a B. And the ramifications of that are what you said earlier. We have a poor community at 88,353, the lowest of the big three of Markham, Vaughan, Richmond Hill. We have a real situation where we have higher crime, which I don't want. We have a situation where the next generation is saying, you know what, I think we'll move elsewhere or go elsewhere with our skilled talent. And right now we have a divestment in Ontario where more people are leaving Ontario for the first time than coming in. This despite 20,000 people coming into the GTA on a monthly basis, because the federal government has brought in immigration at unprecedented numbers, which I'm in favor of, as long as we execute that growth responsibly. And Richmond Hill as an urban center, because we've got it all. We've got the green belt, the Oak Ridge Moraine, which we all love and want to embrace. We've got some really good support, throughout the network, but we have not executed our densification. And as a result, we're promoting rooming houses and Airbnb, which I'm staunchly opposed to. I'm staunchly opposed to infill in King Richmond Hill. I want it to be a place where families and the future generation can live, work, and play in a walkable, livable area. And that includes development. That is our job. Whether you like it or not, municipalities are responsible for implementing the growth that we need according to future generations. If not, we have a decline in our socioeconomic, we have higher crime, lower infrastructure, and that's not the future. I want the other way around. Higher infrastructure, better environment, walkable, livable areas, a place where the middle class and the youth can live, work, and play for generations to come.
So what sorts of development are you looking to see in Richmond Hill to perhaps, do you have any ideas of what you would to see?
I'm sorry, you're gonna have to say it again. My internet just cut out when you were saying that. Can you say it again?
Sorry. What sorts of developments do you think we should see in Richmond Hill to help meet those targets?
Well, I think the low-hanging fruit, frankly, and I think that's exactly that. When we have real easy opportunities, the 2010, 12 year ago failed plan, failed in court, but it's got to the 2010 plan. When we said that the Young Bernard is a key development area and Young and 16th is a key development area, we have parties who are willing to create a walkable, livable area with rentals that are market rent. We got a provincial and federal government ready, willing, and able to assist where possible, to assist us, because we can't do it alone, because we're not capable of doing it alone, because we don't have the leadership, frankly, here, as I've seen here in 8 years on that front. So I'm going to say to you that those are areas where we can really work. Everyone here wants to talk about become part of your environment. When you go to the United States, for example, they welcome investment. They say, come on down. Those of you that ever drive down to the US will see billboards. Hey, look how cheap our electricity rates are. Look what we're willing to do here. Come bring your jobs, come bring your investment, come bring your families. We want you. It seems like many parts of Richmond Hill are saying, yeah, we want you elsewhere. And we have a responsibility as an urban center to live, work, and play, and make it opportunistic for families and young people to live here, and not allowing investment into our transit-orientated communities is a real lost opportunity. And every year we delay means more cost. And look what's happening now with inflation. Wouldn't you wish those buildings were built 2-3 years ago when costs were lower, which would have helped lower affordability? Now what we've done, we've increased taxation. We increased $20,000 a unit 3 weeks ago here in Richmond Hill. Imagine that. We're in an affordability crisis and we increased taxes $30,000 for a unit. which is going to raise rents and raise affordability. We need to go the other way, in my view. We need to be committed to investment and growth and opportunity. We need to make it competitive, and we need, as opposed to high taxation, restrictive policies, long delays, and restricted covenants. Does that answer your question? You want to follow up for that?
Yes, I think as a follow-up on that, as a bit of a clarification. So you mentioned that, you would support like additional housing development in Richmond Hill. So I was just wondering, do you have any particular type of housing that you would support like in that development, or do you feel like it should be more case-by-case basis?
No. I think we should have a master plan. We should try to implement that master plan. And that master plan should be, as it is now, 20, 30, 40 years. But when we don't have a commitment to our 20, 30, 40-year plan, we say, yeah, we'll put that on paper. We'll kind of get it down the line. Hopefully we meet it. If we don't, oh, well. I would like to say, look, if we have a commitment to our performance targets, let's try to meet those performance targets. And let's work with stakeholders. So the provincial, and let's go through that. The province, both Kathleen Wynne and Premier Ford have said, we want transit-oriented communities. We're committed to major transportation servicing areas. What does that mean? Every place where there's a bus stop within 500 meters must be intensified. Every place where there is a higher level transit, GO train, subway, within 800 meters. Look at Richmond Hill. We have along the Highway 7 corridor, Highway 7, Bantry, 16th, Weldrick, Major Mackenzie, Crosby, Elgin Mills, Bernard. That's 8 stops. From Bernard to Yonge is not 8 kilometers. So the province has already said there's going to be intensification on major corridors. The region has invested billions of dollars. They're $3.8 billion. One of those little bus areas that you see, those glass enclosures, are over $600,000 each. Why? Because they want people to use them. Yet we have not approved, since I've been elected, 3 high-rise units. Yet we've, in our 2019 plan, said we're going to do 1 approved project a year. Now, if council at the time in 2019, this term, had debated or had some challenges, or some people in our council had said one way or the other, then that's open to debate. But when we unanimously say that's what we're going to do, we're going in, then let's get on with it. But don't forget, we also have Yonge and 7, major area. And we also have the GO stations. We have, look at the GO stations we have. We have 4 GO stations. We have Stouffville, Gormley, Major Mackenzie, and Highway 7 in Yonge. We have 4 GO stations. Why aren't we becoming a center for jobs, for homes, for investment? Why? Because some people are saying they don't want growth. Again, look at the 2017 population. Look at the 2021, a decline. Why? Because we didn't provide the housing and the jobs. Where did the market go between 2017 and 2021, a very expensive corridor? They went beyond the green belt. We didn't buy into the urban development plan of protecting urban, green belt, rural. We said, no, please go to Innisfil. Please go to London. Please go to Coburg. Go outside the GTA. And that's not great. Not great for the environment. It's not great for families. It doesn't help real job growth. It hurts our productivity in terms of gridlock. No, thank you. So answer your question is, if the province says we're doing this way and the region says we're going that way, and that's the future that they prefer us to go there, and our plans say that's what we're going to do, then why are we restricting it? Oh, because as you pointed out, some people don't want it. We have a need for housing, a need for jobs. It takes 2.1 to 2.3 people per household to maintain or grow an economy. We in Richmond Hill are not coming anywhere near that. And as a result, people are moving out. Their costs are going out. We're creating rooming houses, and people are finding it very, very hard to struggle. When the latest census tells you that over the amount of people that are growing, that are spending 30, 40, 50, 60, 70% of their income on housing is totally unacceptable in our Canada. By the way, we in Canada have the least number of housing per capita than anywhere in the Western world. Our Canada, and Ontario being the juggernaut, needs to be better. And certainly when we have 3% of the population of Ontario, yet 30% of the housing unaffordability, that's a shameful statistic and a real example of why municipalities need to be better, because we're the ones that approve those housing.
All right. And just as a final clarification on that, you said we need more housing in Richmond Hill. Do you have an idea of a specific type of housing in Richmond Hill, such as condos or medium-sized townhouses or single detached units? Do you have any ideas on like the type of housing you might want to see
No,
developed?
I'm going to say to you, you hear people like using terms. I'm not going to use terms. I'm going to tell you, we need housing that matters and is affordable to the population so that they can live, work, and play and raise families. We have a economic development report that said, and made a presentation to council, real families aren't coming here. Younger people are saying it's not vibrant enough for us to stay here. We want to go elsewhere. That's a mistake. We need to have a vibrant community. So what do we need? We need a mixed use of housing. We need to have government that's going to embrace those mixed use of housing. We want to complement the commitment to bring younger and those on fixed incomes, as well as families, to come here. And as real income is a real challenge and not growing, then that means we need to help them in terms of costing. So we need taxation that's going to stay in control. We need faster approvals for the right type of product. What type of product? We need, the reality is people today cannot afford $4, $5, $6 million. And we can't afford to continue to sprawl with only, these larger detached housing. So we need a lot to go to smaller units on urban centers or corridors. And we need to give the opportunity for larger units, call it townhouses or semis, as we move away from those centers. And then you go into the suburban, if those people want to have or more preferred neighborhoods, if we can say it like that. No, it's not always preferred way of saying that. Those areas that have nice established neighborhoods or can have larger lots, if people want that product, by all means, it's available. So Richmond Hill could have it all, but we don't have enough of what is needed relative to the income level, what people can afford. And we need to get away from people who saying, I remember the 90s and I remember the 80s and I remember the 50s. Great news. But now we need to look at reality today. At $8 million an acre, up to $24 million an acre, just the cost of land means that units are going to get smaller, and we need to be smarter in how we use that space. So good density, smart density with established park and integrated trail networks, working with established neighborhoods, working on a progressive model like they would within the Planning Act, on a transit corridors, is the future of Richmond Hill, period.
All right, and this brings us to our last question. If you were to be elected, what would be the first issue you would try to address?
My platform says that first thing I would do is move a motion to double the senior tax credit. I hold the view that we are in an inflationary period. Right now, the January 1, the bank rate was 0.25%. Now it's 3.25%, and we've been told there's going to be another growth likely by the end of this year. That is unprecedented increase. Index pensions have not kept that. And if we're increasing taxation, like has happened in our last two council meetings, where we want to have 10,000% increases in some and 200% tax increases on others, there's no way in the world that people in fixed incomes are going to be able to withhold that unless they use their savings. So we as a municipality have to be compassionate, and we have to look at those seniors and make sure that they can live here. And I think doubling the senior tax credit is a priority, and that's what I put in my platform, and I'm committed to.
All right, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I think one point I just specifically want to ask is, you said that you mentioned like your platform. Is there a place where people can go and view your platform? Because so far I haven't.
Let me look. Good point. Sorry about that, folks. So I have a website, tommunch.ca, that just puts down my platform and mentions some of the ideas. It's very complex. Government's very complex. Community building and engineering is very complex. Not something can be done in a sentence. And I really believe that we have an intelligent workforce. And I believe that you guys, as the upcoming generation, really deserve better and are going to push us. And a lot of things that you aspire, and love to talk to you offline and have offered it many times. We need to get there. So for those people who want to talk and look at some of the things, want to engage me, please go to tommunch.ca. I don't want to promote my website, but that's what it is. Not a lot there, but there's something for everyone. And or call me. I'm open, transparent, and I encourage everyone to try to build a better Ontario, better Richmond Hill, and a better Canada. And I hope you're having fun, excitement, and looking forward to having a prosperous future.
All right, thank you so much for being here for our interview with Students for Political Engagement.
Thank you for inviting me. It's great seeing you guys.